We are live and we're going to record.
All right.
There you go. Siri has said we can go, and so we can go. Welcome, everyone, to the Way to Wow show, People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and I want to thank you for joining me. And my guest this week is John Rubino. You can see him up there on the screen with all the airplane above his head. And I'm going to introduce John in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to mention my guest from last week, Craig Noel. And for those of you who missed that show, Craig is a former investment banker who now is the managing director of Healthy Tribes. So his company puts together distribution arrangements for healthy food producers, essentially, as well as some funding, et cetera. And Craig kind of went through his professional arc through the finance world and the deal-making world and all the craziness, even at one time working for Goldman Sachs in New York, even though he started out life as a farm boy in Tulare County here in California. So it shows you that we can all find our way to wow professionally if we work at it, and that's what this show is all about. It's talking to people who have found professional satisfaction, are doing remarkable things to make a living. And my friend John Rubino, almost more like a brother at this point, is certainly someone who fits that bill. John and I met now, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Yeah. When John was still in the Navy, and he was starting the process of transitioning out of the military into civilian life. And like a lot of people coming out of the military, he was looking at one of the fairly traditional career paths of going to work for a government contractor or something like that. And he happened to mention to me that he had this real estate investment company that he had started with a partner. And I could hear the difference of a level of excitement in his voice when he would talk about working for, a defense contractor, working for a defense contractor and working in my real estate business. And so eventually John made the decision to pursue his real estate business full time. And I think it's fair to say that he's been very happy with that decision, not because it's been easy. I don't think any time we start a business that we're taking the easy route by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that in terms of the route that has fulfilled John the most, going with making his business full time has really filled that bill. So we're going to talk to John about that and see what we can learn from him in terms of lessons that we can apply to our professional lives so that we can follow in John's footsteps. So John, thanks for coming on the Way to Wow.
Thanks, Kevin. Honored to be here with my brother. And thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here and to talk with you and share my experiences with you and your listeners. And we also have Dave Rutherford on with us today. Dave is our Director of Investor Relations, also an Army veteran. And Dave's been with our team for about a year now. So hopefully we'll give Dave a chance to jump on as well. But I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to this being on the show. And I'm looking forward to having some fun with you.
That's great. And Dave, let's assure the viewers, you and I did not coordinate our colors before the show. It just happened to be that way, So John, I want to kind of take you back.
That is true. We did not.
So I want to take you back to the beginning of what we might call your professional journey, or maybe kind of one step before that. As I recall, you went to the Merchant Marine Academy. Is that correct?
I went to what's called the State University of New York. We call it SUNY. And that was at the Maritime College, which was directly across the river from the Merchant Marine Academy. So I didn't go to the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point. It was at SUNY Maritime College at Fort Schuyler. So that was where I attended college for 4 years there. Yeah.
And what did you study? Why did you make the decision to go there?
Well, I attended a military high school junior ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, and I had a pretty good time there. I did well. I had some aspirations to join the military. When Top Gun came out in 1984, I said that's what I want to do, and I just pushed real hard, and I worked hard through high school, and I went to SUNY Maritime because of the fact that they had a Navy ROTC program. So that was kind of one of the main reasons. They also had a very good business program. And I also had the opportunity to become a third mate in the Merchant Marine as well. So I kind of felt like I would be coming out of college with, an array of different skill sets that would be, quite helpful and resourceful for me out there in the real world. But my passion was always the military, and plus it was close to home. So I'm born and bred in Brooklyn, New York, so I wasn't too far from friends and family. But we did board and at the college 5 days a week. We went away during the summer for 60 days for 3 summers in a row to different ports throughout the world, which was fantastic. And so I got the experience of being in the military before I actually said the oath and put the golden bars on my shoulders. So yeah, it was quite an experience.
Very cool. So 3 or 4 years of college going through NROTC, you come out as a newly minted ensign, and you go on active duty with the Navy, right?
That's right.
So, and you mentioned Top Gun. Having served with 2 air wings, I can testify that Top Gun was the best naval aviator recruiting piece in history. Absolutely. And it's only been recently that its impact has not been felt in the Navy. So talk a little bit, if you would, about becoming a naval aviator now, which is kind of a specialty over and beyond joining the Navy.
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I was really inspired through the military. My dad was in the Marine Corps. He served in Korea. He won the Bronze Star. He was awarded the Bronze Star and the Combat Purple Heart. And ever since I was a kid, I just really looked up to my dad. I still do. He's 87 years old and he's my hero. And so I always had aspirations to want to be in the military. And as I got to learn more about the different options in the military, I know I didn't want to be on a surface ship, and I knew I didn't want to be on a submarine. And just being an aviator, there's not a lot of people in the world that can say they can do that. And from the people I spoke to, and when I got to go away during the summer to different squadrons to talk with pilots, they all just kind of, they had this coolness about them, and also they were just very much professional, knew their jobs inside and out. And just the excitement of being able one day to get into an airplane and take that up and take it into either harm's way for combat or just to perform maneuvers. And also I had the opportunity to be an instructor pilot. So I had the chance to teach kids who were just coming right out of college how to fly an airplane, which was such a rewarding experience. Probably my favorite tour out of my 20 years in is teaching these kids coming out of college how to fly an airplane, which was a lot of fun.
So I assume you did at least 1 or 2 carrier deployments?
So this big plane up here, the P-3 Orion, was the plane I eventually selected out of flight school. So when I graduated, I was down in Pensacola for 6 weeks. The Marines got to beat the heck out of me. We did aviation training in the pool, learning how to get out of our parachute and doing all kinds of survival training. We went through classes, aerodynamics, meteorology, and then when I selected my site for primary and advanced training, I selected Corpus Christi, Texas. So going from New York City at 99 miles an hour to Corpus Christi, Texas at 10 miles an hour was definitely an eye-opening experience. But I selected P-3 Orions after my primary training. And the P-3 is a land-based aircraft that was really designed to be a submarine hunter during the Cold War, but business kind of was kind of done in that way back in the early 90s, but it's picking back up again. So the P-3 became then what was called an ISR platform, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platform. So we would basically go out and survey the battlefield for on-scene battlefield commanders who were actually on the plane with us and calling back to their units to tell them where the bad guys were. And we'd also be able to bring in fighters to take out, air sites, radar sites, whatever in particular that was necessary in combat. So, but I wasn't on a carrier, I was land-based given the size of the aircraft. So I got to deploy to Italy and Puerto Rico and Iceland. But I did get to do some time out at sea, but not while I was as a pilot. It was more in a staff job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did you mentioned being in Rosie Roads in Puerto Rico and up in Iceland and such. Did you do any combat deploymments or talk to us a little bit about that, just so people understand your background?
My first deployment to Rosie Roads was to go after drug operations out of Colombia and in South America. So we were out going after, combating the war on drugs, which we actually had some instances where we did, track drug runners out of Colombia and out of certain ports, which was pretty exciting. Bringing the Coast Guard in and doing what's called maritime interdiction operations, MEO and VBSS, which was very interesting. And then when I went to Iceland, we were really patrolling the North Sea up there just to prevent or see if there's anything going on from the Soviets. Or from Russia at that time. So that was interesting. I also got a little time after the Bosnian conflict in the early 90s. I got a chance to get into those areas to do surveillance after the war was over. And my second deployment, I went to Sigonella in Sicily and in Ceuta Bay, Crete. And we did have combat operations. Primarily, there was Al-Qaeda threats in the Levant region and also in the Straits of Gibraltar. So we would be combat capable to potentially launch on any enemy combatants that were threatening passageways through the Straits, as well as along the Levant region with our partners with Israel and in that area of the world. So it was pretty exciting.
So of course the operational stuff, very exciting stuff. You mentioned but every other tour you were doing something non-operational, right? Or typically that would be. So what kind of other do as a naval aviator when you weren't, behind the controls of a plane?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. So after my first operational tour, I went to a test squadron in Patuxent River, Maryland. My first tour was in Jacksonville, my second Jacksonville, Florida, and I was in Patuxent River, Maryland. And that's when actually I started learning about real estate, which was about the 10-year point in my career. But I did fly a test squadron for 3 years, which was pretty exciting. I supported the Naval Research Laboratory, which is actually close by to where I live here in Maryland. And we would take up the scientists from the lab to test out their equipment. And these were state-of-the-art, cutting edge technologies that were going out to the warfighters from the Naval Research Lab. So we were out testing those equipments before, kind of in the testing and the pre-release phase to the warfighters. After that, I did a 3-year tour in Naples, Italy, supporting Commander 6th Fleet and the Commander Naval Forces Europe. And that was a really exciting tour because I started to harness an analytical skill through operational research and operational analysis, which I loved. And I was part of the 4-star commander's staff where I would conduct operational net assessment on Africa and certain countries in those areas in Western Central Africa, in the Balkans. I got the chance to go to the country of Georgia, the country of Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania. I was on a DDG, and we were supposed to go up to the Black Sea to conduct an exercise, which at the time, they're not part of NATO, but they're part of what's called PFP, Partnership for Peace. And those were the countries inside the Black Sea, with the exception of Turkey and Bulgaria and Romania, who are our NATO partners. But Ukraine, Georgia, some of the countries there we were partners with. We were supposed to go for a big exercise, but we got diverted because unfortunately there was a war going on in Israel, and we were brought in to support non-combatant evacuation operations out of Lebanon because of Israel's war at the time there. So that was pretty eye-opening. I remember one night on the bridge of the DDG, I was on with the XO at about 2 in the morning, and we're just up there, talking because you just, I told him I'd come up and hang out with him and spend some time with him when he was on his watch, the XO, and over our head, F-15s are flying over and dropping bombs down in downtown Lebanon and in Beirut. And then you had all these ships in the port. So that was really eye-opening to see that and to get the chance to participate. But then on the next time, I did get to go up to the Black Sea, which was amazing, going through the Dardanelles and the Bosporus Straits. The Turks are amazing people. Everywhere you look, when you go through those straits, you see a Turkish flag. They just are so prideful, and they're so full of pride in their nation. And it just kind of, it hit home for me. I really enjoyed that. And then after my 3 years in Italy, came back and I came back to DC. Or I'm sorry, I went back to Corpus Christi, and I was an instructor pilot and department head for 2 years, teaching kids how to fly the T-34 aircraft, which is this one right here, which you probably can't see. That was a great tour. And then I finished up here in DC. I did my last 6 years. I was working for the Navy headquarters staff, the OpNav staff, and I was a senior branch officer supporting the Chief of Naval Operations, CNP, Chief of Naval Personnel Staff, N1, the 3-star. And I was running manpower, personnel training, and education, which again was an amazing experience just to learn. And I made a lot of good connections, which have been a blessing post-Navy life because I still keep in touch with a lot of people. So that's kind of been it.
Yeah. So, a varied background in terms of the jobs you did in the Navy. If you took a big sifter and put all of your Navy experiences in that sifter and kind of shook it out, what comes out the other end in terms of what you found best prepared you for a civilian career, that you learned during the many different experiences you had as a naval aviator, as a Navy officer?
Another fantastic question. I think a lot of us are, as we get ready to come out and we get ready to take the next step, you always hear the term soft skills, right? And I think that is a huge advantage we have veterans coming out, is those soft skills, how to communicate, being in front of a commanding officer who's, your boss, the CO, the CEO of the company, the CEO of the squadron. You're presenting to him and you're briefing him and you're telling him how the mission's going to go. And, you're put under a lot of pressure pretty early in your life. So you come out kind of with good experience, tried, tested, and proved that you can go through that. So I think the soft skills, the communication, the ability to see, the leaders that I might not necessarily want to emulate, but still learn from them why I didn't want to emulate them just because of the way they maybe acted or whatever it was. And then the ones that I truly, just was blessed with to be able to work with and serve with. And those were the ones that I really took a lot from as well. So what you get to experience, the opportunities you get to participate in, the things you get to learn, the things you get to see, and then to take that and bring that into the business world, to be able to use those skills to build on, and the different things you learn through policy and how to write papers and how to, again, provide a presentation to a senior executive or a 4-star or 3-star admiral or general. But now you're presenting that to your investors, or you're presenting that to CEOs and CEOs of businesses that you're going to work with who are developers, and you're going to be at their big table explaining them why you're important in their life. And you only get 30 seconds to a minute to do that. And then when you do, they want to talk to you now for another 2 hours. So that's been a great blessing, I think, coming out of the military. There's other things too, but I think to me, those soft skills were huge, and what I learned from that. And then I would say the other thing too is always having a mentor, always having, when you got to a different command after 2 or 3 years and you PCS, going to a new command is really it's scary, right? I mean, you're learning everything from scratch after coming from the place where you were the best of what you did. So going to the smart people, learning from them, getting a mentor. And that's how I do business now. I mean, I'm always learning. I always want to, have a mentor. You and I connected when I got out, about a couple of months before I got out, and I was picking your brain because you had those experiences. And not only did I have a wonderful opportunity to learn from you, but we became very good friends. We're brothers. And that's the other side of the coin, is that if you do it the right way and you learn from folks and you give back, you build these relationships. And these are foundationally concrete relationships that can't be shaken, no matter what. And you call on each other in your lowest of your lows and your highest of your highs. So I'm eternally grateful for that experience from the military.
Now, you mentioned when you were in Patuxent, that's kind of where you started your involvement with real estate. So why don't you, if you would, take us back to that, and how did that get started?
Yeah, so I was in Patuxent River, Maryland. I was about the 8 to 10 year mark in my Navy career. I had a wife and 2 of my 4 kids at the time, just babies. And the first thing I decided to do was to go back for my master's. So I signed up for a master's program at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and I actually ended up getting my master's in 2008. When I went to Italy, I finished online and got that master's, which I thought was a big thing I wanted to have in my resume and my professional kind of criteria there. So that was the first thing. The second was I was on a detachment for 8 weeks in New Orleans, and I was with a good friend of mine who is now one of my best friends, who I've worked with in real estate since I started, because he got me started. And God has a way of doing things that, if you just nod your head and say yes to the Lord, he takes you down a path that you'll enjoy. So my buddy Scott and I were stationed together as students in Corpus Christi, Texas. And then we were stationed together at VP 16, Patrol Squadron 16, which was our first squadron tour together. And every time I was kind of around Scott, he always talked about this thing called real estate, doing this and that. And I never really knew what he meant. But God, again, put us together in Patuxent River, and we were both together on an 8-week detachment. And I'm in my room watching a movie, just, doing nothing, wasting time. And Scott came into my room and he said, "Hey, why don't we go next door to my room? I want to talk to you a little bit about this thing called real estate." And from that point on, I was hooked. I wanted to do everything. And it's just, I got the bug, and he just walked through it in a way that I just became captivated by it, just, obsessed with it. So when we got back, I was trying to do foreclosures and residential renovation and all this stuff. But at the time, it was around 2005, 2006. So right before the Great Recession. So everything was such overvalued, so high priced. But where we were stationed, Naval Force, the Nav Air group, Naval Air, which is the acquisition arm of aviation, had moved from the Pentagon and Pentagon Road to Patuxent River. So that's a 3-star commander, and he's bringing all of his acquisition folks down there to Patuxent River. So who's going to go there? The Northrop Grummons, the Boeings, the Titan Systems, the Raytheons, the L3s, all the contractors are going down with them. And what do they need? They need a place to live. So Patuxent River is pretty funny. It was an old Southern Maryland town, very country-esque, not a lot there. And in a matter of 3 years, when the 3-star got there with that command, it just exploded. So there was a need for home building. And so Scott and I partnered up with a couple of new home builders, and we basically got involved in investing in new construction home building. So the first one I did, I participated in the investment. It was a $1,000 investment, fully refundable. And the builder would basically do what's called a construction loan. They take out the funds to build the property. And then at closing, we would do what's called a construction to permanent loan. You know what that is, Kevin. And so from construction to permanent went the builder, and all of his costs and the land went to me, then the buyer. Well, what I did 2 weeks before I bought the house from the builder is I turned around and put it on the market. And so I got it at $280,000 of what I would have bought it for. And I turned around and sold it for $370,000. So wow. I ended up making a nice $65,000 to $70,000 profit. And I said, wow, I like this. So I did it again. And I had another successful transaction there. Scott did it. He did it as well and had very good success. And then when we went to Italy, we had bought our home at the time when we first got to Patuxent River for $234,000. And in 3 years later, we sold it for $360,000. So, and if anybody knows, when you're in the military, if you own a home for 2 of the last 10 years and you sell it, you don't have to worry about paying any of the capital gains as long as it's below $500,000 of profit. So I got to take all of that and be able to utilize that for investment. So what I did was I took about $200,000 of my money. Scott and I had a nice conversation. I stayed in, he got out, and he started building his business, and I gave him a $200,000 investment loan. And what happened there, Kevin, was interesting. He was going out and buying a row house in Washington, D.C. and converting it into a 3 or 4 unit condo, or he would buy another building and gut it out and turn it into a 5-unit condo. And he was sending me the pro formas, the budgets, the offering memorandums, the details on the project, the demographics, the locations, why he was investing. And so I was learning this. I was basically a passive investor. And I started to understand it more. And I was getting 10% a year on that 200 grand for 7 years. So every year I was getting 10% on that 200 for 7 years in a row. When I got back to DC and I got to the point where I was getting ready to think about what I was going to do when I grow up after the Navy, I had about 5 years left. And I talked to my financial advisor at the time about, hey, I think I got something good here. I did this for 7 years with my buddy. I would love to be able to do this where I can bring in more money for him through friends and family and people I got to meet, and give him larger chunks of capital that he would need for equity, the down payment money for the bank loans that he would go out and get. And my financial advisor right away said, well, if you do that, you need to talk to your accountant, who he introduced me to, who happened to be my accountant at the time, who is now my business partner and my best friend, David Schatz. And so David was my accountant since 2010, 2011. And I pitched him this idea of, hey, why don't we be a business that brings on friends and family? You have an accounting firm, David. You have clients that might be interested in this. I have friends in the Navy. I got people I know. I've been networking in the DC area for a while. Why don't we start this business and put it together where we basically bring money in from these individuals? We bring it through our business. We bring in our money. We do the due diligence, we do the review, we put the legal docs together, and then we invest that money under the umbrella of the sponsor, the one that's actually out there building these properties. And David said, I'm in. I love it. I'm in. So that was an easy sell. But what David brought to the table was the experience, the knowledge, the expertise of owning a business, and really having the skill sets that we needed to be able to build the foundation of the company. I'm the face of the business. I go out, I talk to people. I love meeting people. I love those relationships. I meet with companies to grow the new partnerships for sponsors reinvestment. I meet the new investors. David's really more of the inside person that does so much of the finance piece, the tax piece. He puts my mind at ease from what he does, and I put him at ease from what he does and what I do. So it's a great partnership. And again, I have my primary verticals of what I'm good at. I still know what David does, which is the horizontal, and vice versa for David. And it just turned out to be a great business. So we took a full year, Kevin, from 2012 to 2013 to put together all of our documents, all of our paperwork. And when we thought we were, ready to go, we gave that information to very trusted friends and family that went through it, who had enormous experience in mortgage lending and brokerages and real estate and banking, and they beat the heck out of us in a good way. And so we took all that information, we made those changes, and those folks turned around and said, we don't want you to pay us a dime, but we want you to bring us on as your investors. So that was a great compliment. And that's how it's been. We've grown our business to now 175 to 180 investors, mostly from organic introductions and relationships that we've had. We brought Dave on, Dave Rutherford, last year in February, and Dave has just been an amazing force and a great part of our team that makes things wonderful for us in a way. And you get this, and everybody who's a veteran who watches the show get this. I'm the CEO of the squadron, and Dave is my master chief. Dave will go out and get things done. And we have a relationship where if Dave says, hey, I think we should do it this way, I hear him out and I say, you know what, we're going to do it that way. That makes all the sense in the world. So we have a great working relationship. We respect each other as peers, but at the same time, he knows that, we make the decisions, but he's there to help us. And he's been doing a fantastic job. So we're growing now. We're expanding. We're investing in 10 investments with $25 million of investments right now. We've completed 17 projects with 8 million invested and about 6 million in profits. So, I mean, we're a business, we're rocking and rolling, and I'm enjoying everything I do. Yeah. Like you said, it's not easy. It's a lot of work. I mean, we're in business next month, 9 years. I can't believe it. 9 years we've been in business, and to look back and see where we've come over the last 9 years with COVID and challenges with supply chains and all the stuff everybody's seeing, and still come out with success in the green or in the red or green, profitable on every project in the black. And to be doing as well as we're doing is just truly a blessing. God's got me right where he wants us, and we're just going along for the ride.
So you started at Pax River, an investment of $1,000, and I heard now you're at 18 million. Is that the figure?
18 million in our active deals and 25 million total combined from the 17 full cycle deals and the 10 deals we're investing on right now. And when were you in Pax River? 2000. I was in Pax River in 2005, 2006. So about 15, 16 years ago. About
17, yes, 16, yes. 17 years ago. So it's fantastic growth, but it actually, it's been, getting on 20 years, right? That building a little bit at a little bit. And I suspect the growth curve kind of went like this, right? So it starts out slow and then it picks up, right?
Yeah. And we purposely wanted it that way. We didn't want to get into anything over our head, and we still are that way. I mean, we're investing on projects we feel comfortable with, or in our sandbox and our sweet spot. When we first started, we were doing $150,000 to $200,000 investments. Now we're doing, $4, $5, $6 million investments. So the guy I mentioned, Scott, he's a $400 million development company now, and guess who my number one sponsor is that I work with? So it doesn't go by any chance that that's just happened, karma, whatever. I got lucky, and that's just God's way of connecting the right people to do great things, and that's how it's been.
So that's a perfect segue for my next question, because having known you for as long as I have, one of the things that I find strongest about you is the emphasis that you put on building relationships. So would you talk about that process? Is that something you learned in the military? And if so, how? And then how did you take whatever that nascent skill was and expand it into your civilian career?
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. It started when I was a kid. I was an only child. I had two half sisters, but we are so close. They're my sisters. I came from a mother and father that, my dad owned his own company. He owned his own construction company in downtown Brooklyn. He put up 12 stories in the towers when the bomb went off in '93. He was, in the midst of New York City construction his whole life after, by around his 40s, into his 30s after he got out of the Marine Corps. So dad was a business owner. He woke up at 4:30 in the morning. I saw him at 6 o'clock at night, and he worked his butt off. Mom was a school teacher for 30 years. And she was also a family therapist. So she did counseling, and so she owned her own business. I had 7 uncles and 5 aunts from my mom's side, where my mom's father immigrated from Italy in 1898, and a second generation grandmother where my grandfather was 21 and my grandmother was 14 when they got married. And they had 7 boys, 6 of which owned their own grocery stores. My grandfather owned his own olive oil company. And my 7th uncle, who's my godfather, owns a riding academy in Brooklyn, New York, in Rockaway Beach, that his oldest boy still owns and is doing amazing things with. So, and then I had 5 aunts that just, pretty much were the number crunchers, and they helped my grandmother and took care of the house and basically took care of the boys. And then you take that and you multiply that by, 20 or 30, and that's the number of cousins I had. So I was I came from a very tight-knit family. You know, Italians typically are very hands-on, and ever since I was a kid, we were always taught that, you know, if you're in business, you take care of the customer. Customers is the number one person you take care of. So much so that they're family. And so my cousin Frank, he's a survivor of cancer. He wrote a book called Now I Know I'm Not Alone. And chapter 3 in the book talks about our family, and blew me away, because again, Frank just goes into, and if you talk to any of my cousins, the same thing they'll say in family is that we always know how to take care of our customers, because the customer is your life support. If you don't take good care of your customers, how do you bring home money? How do you take care of your family? But not only that, the relationship opens the doors to so many other things. Friendship, taking care of each other, looking after each other. Money's a part of that. The relationship is the foundation. So to me, I love when I meet someone new, or I get the chance to get to know somebody. A, because I'm learning about them. B, I'm getting a chance to understand who they are. And C, it could be a friend I get to, you know, I don't know, God knows where that's going to go. So it's a person that's brought into my life. And then when you read books like, you know, The Millionaire Next Door, and the Dale Carnegie book, I'm drawing a blank, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you read Robert Kiyosaki's books, and you just, Donald Trump, The Art of the Deal. Everything is about relationships, bringing people together, working with people. And when you kind of look at someone and say, I'm going to do my best to take care of that person and get them what they need, because if I do, I know if they're like me, they're going to do the same thing. And so it just catapults and multiplies into something that it's euphoric. I guess that's the best way to explain it. That when you can do things with people and build those relationships and get to know their families. I mean, when I was a lieutenant in the maintenance department for my first job, I used to walk around the shops and talk to the maintenance guys and gals and get to know them. And, you know, I'd go back the next day and say, hey, how's your mom feeling? I know you mentioned she's in the hospital. They look at you like, what the heck? Who are you? You know, it's like you blow them away. But when you show you actually care, and you do, it's just hard to explain. It's just an amazing connection. And you could do that with anybody. You call up a customer service representative at Verizon, and you ask someone when they pick up the phone, hey, how are you? Are you having a good day? How's everything going? They're going to bend over backwards for you, just because you take the opportunity to be a human, and you take the opportunity to treat someone with respect, whether they're the janitor or they're the CEO of the company. It just is, it's amazing. And I love it.
So, excuse me, what I'm hearing is you really grew up with that being almost by osmosis coming into you. So for someone who didn't grow up in that kind of family environment, how can they develop that skill, that ability?
Yeah.
What would you?
Yeah. Mentor, get a mentor. Look at someone that you see that you want to be like, from either a business standpoint, how they treat someone, their faith. You know, I mean, to me, if someone comes up to me and says, you know, why are you always so happy? I just say, because I believe in Jesus Christ. He's my savior. I love him. And next thing you know, it's like, well, wait, you know, and then I have a conversation with them, and that's great. I love that. Or someone comes up and sees me smiling all the time, and they say, why are you always smiling? Well, because I coach, or I am part of, I'm part of an organization, the Knights of Columbus, or I help out in the community. I mean, that's a way somebody can do it from a civic standpoint. From a business standpoint, practice, get in front of the mirror. You know, what do you want to do? If you want to be in real estate, that's great. Learn about real estate, get the strategic level understanding. But then what do you want to do when you get into real estate? Do you want to be a wholesaler? Do you want to be a commercial lender? Do you want to be a passive investor? Start breaking out into the mold of the direction in real estate you want to go to. Get book smart, but then go out and start to talk to people. Network. I've been networking in Washington, D.C. for 11 years. I mean, I love to network. I love to go out and meet people, because that's the lifeblood of business. When you get to meet people who, if you give them a referral that turns into dollars, they're going to do everything they can for you, you know? Mm-hmm. So that to me is important. And that's the best way I think somebody can do it. I really do. It's define what you want to do. Get a legal pad, write it down, what you want to do, right? And then start doing the spider webs. Like, what do I want to do out of this? And what do I need to succeed out of this?
And one of the things I think, and you probably overlook this because it's just a part of you, is you authentically love people.
I do.
And people can sense that about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we can cultivate as well. I mean, you obviously grew up in a very loving family. Although I'm guessing there were probably fighting in your family as well, right?
Oh yeah.
Every family.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you probably fought with love.
Yeah, we did. Right? We did. Yeah. My mom used to tell me when my uncles were together and they had a meeting about business, it was like screaming and yelling, this and that. And then it was quiet. And my grandmother would go in and they'd all have a glass of scotch and they were laughing and, so yeah, I mean, that's just part of it. I will say though, you have to be careful. And this is something I've learned is that, if you become the type of person that you really are driven by relationships and just wanting to be accepted, it can become a double-edged sword because then you could become a people pleaser, where then you can become someone that, it's someone that gets stepped on a lot. So, sometimes you have to be careful that it's not pride that's driving you into those relationships because you want people to like you so much, but it's gratitude and it's humility and it's objectivity and it's not emotion. And that's not always easy because, you connect with a good person and you get excited and you think to yourself, wow, I'm going to do a lot of business with this person, or this is a person I want to introduce to my wife and my kids. And it's like all of a sudden they do something, or then they start using you in a way where you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what I anticipated. So
yeah, and that's a great point, is as we develop relationships, we want to be giving, but by the same token, we don't want to be taken advantage of. And that's something we learn, through experience, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think though it would be, and tell me, what you think about this, we probably have to take the risk of being taken advantage of sometimes if we're going to find those relationships that are really worth building.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you don't know until you try, right? Like you could plan for it and say, wow, do I really want to take a risk on this? But when you try, you may not necessarily succeed, or you may stumble at first, but at least you go through that process. And I'm reading a good book. It's called The Mindful Catholic. And one of the things it teaches you is that, we shouldn't be afraid to embrace discomfort, right? I mean, Colin Powell said, the secret to success is that I've fallen, but I've gotten back up and I was able to keep going, learn from that. Because we're so afraid to get hurt. And we're so, especially in society today, I mean, people are just not comfortable with pain, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, psychological. But at the same time, pain allows us to grow. It allows us to experience something. You can have the greatest day of your life every day for 2 weeks, but then after a while, it kind of gets boring, right? I mean, you need a little bit of a change to experience, so And so I think today, God help the people in Ukraine, what they're going through, not that type of suffering, but at the same time, that's sometimes when you see that happening, Kevin, on television and you hear about it, you really appreciate what you have. And you kind of realize then, hey, this thing, freedom, it comes at a cost, and we shouldn't be running away from those pains. We shouldn't run away from those things that are going to possibly be failures. We should look at them and say they're opportunities, and try to learn from them.
So we've just got a few more minutes.
Sure.
So what does the future hold for John Rubino, for JID Investments, for David and Dave, and what do you see as your trajectory from here on out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a nice groove right now. Obviously, I love balance. I'd like to see our projects that are currently larger scale projects that have been going on for a few years come full cycle and finish. We are getting ready to finish one of our largest projects to date, which would be wonderful. And so I'd like to see some of the balance there as things are getting done, more projects are coming in. Dave is learning not only things that we brought him on for to learn and be part of, but he's also learning other areas of the business, which I'm excited about because it's going to only open his spectrum of what he can do and be able to enjoy doing with us. And I'm always asking Dave, and he can probably tell you after we get done, I always say to him, "You're having fun?" And if he doesn't tell me no, I don't hang up. I say, "Come on, let's talk about why." But he's always smiling. He's always having fun, which tells me he's enjoying what he's doing. And that's important to me because I want us all, I want our team, as we grow, everybody that's on our team to have fun. And so I think, as we have a consultant that works with us that does due diligence. I'd like to see that area expand a bit more where we have a capacity to look at more projects and just slowly kind of grow in a way that we're not growing uncomfortably, but we're at a nice pace, I'd say between a crawl and a run, a nice steady walk, and just doing more projects we're comfortable with and not overexerting ourselves. I have 4 kids. One's going to college this year. My mom and dad are down here now. So it's like, gotta have good balance. Yeah. And most importantly, and I would say, make sure you take time for yourself. People are they get so excited about, being successful, and that's important, but go out and go for a walk, take a fresh air in, take the dog out, spend some time. That's something I've learned lately is that I got to be able to take time for me, because if I'm not good, then my wife is out, my kids are out, my family's out, because I'm not myself. And I can't be that person that I want to be, let alone who they want me to be.
Once again, you gave me the perfect segue for my next question, and this I think probably be the maybe the last question. So I've had the pleasure of meeting your wife, Stacy.
Thank you.
Would you talk a little bit about being married and going through this career progression? Maybe some of the challenges, how you've dealt with your marriage in the context of the various decisions and the successes and setbacks you've had. How is that? Mind sharing maybe a little bit more personally then?
So Stacy and I dated for 2 years, 2.5 years before we got engaged, and it was mainly long distance. She wanted to go back home and finish her degree when we met in Texas. I was just finishing flight school and got my wings and was going to go through my first squadron. We kind of decided, hey, let's not move in together. I don't believe that from my fate standpoint anyway, but I just said, hey, let's, you go finish your degree. Let me get my wings and learn how to fly this big plane up here. And we got engaged right before my first deployment back in 2001. We had been dating for 2-3 years. And it was good in a way because, again, we were away from each other and we were building that tolerance of being away from each other that would prepare us for when, we had to move or I went on a deployment when we were married. So we kind of built that strength and that foundation up front. And I thought it was the right way to go. And she agreed. And then when we got married, 3 months later, I'm leaving for another 6-month deployment. So again, wow. She was away from me for that time. So we built a pretty strong foundation up front. Stacy's been my best friend. She's everything. She knows me better than I know me. And communication is so important. She may say something one way and I say it another, and it becomes an argument just because we weren't able to clearly articulate our side of what we're talking about. But now it's all about the kids, college and sports and running around, and she teaches. So we're really happy to finally be planting our roots here in Northern Virginia, that we have a home now, that we're here now 11 years, always in the military, moving every 2-3 years. But, she always said that if it makes sense for the family, she was willing to make the sacrifices. She knew the life she was getting into. Stacy was a Christian before we got married, but it was very important to me that we raised our kids as Catholics, and she agreed to become a Catholic. She converted. So she was willing to sacrifice. She was willing to do things in a way that, she understood what marriage meant. And she teaches me so much as not only my wife, my best friend, but my partner. And, I always joke, I tell her, I wish we were in business together, but she says, no, you do what you do. I do what I do. But it's really it's a harmonious get together where I could honestly say that I don't think we fought more than 10 times in our whole entire marriage. And we're going on 20 years this May. Just, we get along really well. And, she's just, she's opening different doors to me of understanding different things. And I as well, my family's embraced her. I love her family, and, the kids see that. And I think that today is really important because, as you know, it's difficult these days with families, the way things are going, and kids don't have a strong father or mother, whether they're married or even if they're divorced, they still need those parents to get them through the toughest times in their lives. And a lot of kids are missing that these days. They're not getting it from mom and dad. They're getting it from school or from their friends, and they should be getting it back at home. The family is the nucleus. That's why we as a society have been so successful over our 220 plus years of existence, this country, right? Or 40, is because of the family, I think. Kids have gone out after being raised from a mom and dad and a family to go out and be successful in life. So, yeah. Long
That's
answer
wonderful.
to a short question.
Yeah, no, a very good answer. And again, so I want to see if I can sort of distill out a few of the lessons we might take from your story. So sort of starting from the end and working back. One of the things I've seen as a consistent theme throughout your story is you're open to listening to other people, to really taking in what it is they have to teach you. And I think that speaks to, I say this as your brother, it speaks to your humility, right? So there's the famous saying, who is wise? He who learns from all people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've really made that a central tenet of your life, whether it's from your wife, your business partner, mentors, whoever it is. You've been open to learning from them. And that's not to say that you accept everything that they've said to you, but you're open to hearing it, you taking it in, analyze it, and saying, does this have a place in the overall tapestry of my life? So I think that seems to me that's one very important aspect of your success. I think another one is, and this I get this is I didn't make this up. This is another friend of mine who made this up. We've for so many decades we've lived in the world of just say no. It seems to me you live in the world of just say yes, which is what my friend Bob Sanders talks about. He's a doctor at NASA, and he says, just say yes, even if you're not really sure that it's going to work out, or you're not really sure if you really know what to do, or just say yes. Mm-hmm. Take a step forward in faith, even, and do your best to navigate those situations, and they'll probably work out better than you might think they would. So it seems to me you've always been willing to sort of take that step forward on the next lap of your journey. And I think the third lesson I would distill from your story is your faith. And not just your religious faith, although I suspect that that's the source of it, but your life is a testament to the kind of faith it takes in oneself, in one's family, in one's country, in one's colleagues, that if we do the things that we know we need to do, then somehow good things will come from that. So how, in terms of a summary, how does that sound to you? Am I off base?
No, I think you were spot on. I appreciate it. When are you going to write my book? I love it. You know me well, Kevin.
What would you add to that, if anything?
I mean, just enjoying it, right? Because one of my friends was saying a couple months ago, life is so fast. Before you know it, just enjoy the opportunities you have, and just take a step back every once in a while, and don't be so worried about what you need to accomplish, but look at what you've accomplished. Like, look at what you've done, and just not in a prideful way, like you said, in a humble way, just to be so grateful of the blessings and the things that have been accomplished. But yeah, I think you stole the show there with that. I agree. Great summary.
Here you go. So, David, Sam, do you have a question to pose to
Sam.
John? No? I'm giving it a second here.
No, hey, Kevin, I appreciate you allowing us to attend. I think this is a great forum. John is always such a wonderful representative of not only our company, but of course himself. I think this was a great opportunity for
That's a great
John to
compliment from
share
an
some
Army
knowledge
guy.
and
Wow.
experience, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. No, this has been really good. I always enjoy attending, things like this, as I always learn something new about John that I didn't know before.
Yeah, I mean, I learned new things about John as well. So this is a great example of Army Navy cooperation here, right?
Yeah, and Sam's prior military too.
Are you Sam?
Yeah, he's got some mic problems.
He's having
Yeah,
mic problems. Okay.
Sam is in the Knights of Columbus with us here at our local parish. He was a Supreme Knight of our council. A wonderful, wonderful man. He's got a wonderful family. And every time I see Sam at church, he's always smiling. So, and he was actually a soccer coach for my middle boy. Yeah, he was retired Air Force. So we just need the Marine Corps, player here.
And we're all set. Well,
Yeah.
I did my first tour at the Marine Corps, so maybe I'm a sort of an honorary Marine.
Yes, that's
well,
right.
John, thank you so much for coming on the way to WOW, people making money. Very much your story really is an inspirational story. Just the idea of going from $1,000 investment to $25 million investment. It's as inspiring as Craig's story of going from a farm boy running around barefoot to working for Goldman Sachs. I mean, none of us are Elon Musk. This is not to knock Elon Musk at all. Fabulously successful guy, very smart, all of that. But most of us are not going to be Elon Musk. But we can be a John Rubino, we can be a Craig Noel, we can be a Jennifer Chang, the kind of people that I'm so fortunate to get to talk to on this show. And so I really appreciate you coming on and telling us your story. So and I realize I forgot who my guest is next week. I got to look this up real quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay. Next week, my guest is Marcia Collier. So if you are on Twitter, you probably know Marcia. Marcia is, among other things, author of a number of the Dummies books, where you learn how to do all kinds of great stuff. She also has a Twitter show, basically, on customer service. And Marcia is a thought leader and a tremendous innovator, has been really her whole life. I've been trying to get her on the show for quite a while now, so I'm really happy that she's finally able to work us into her calendar. So I invite you to tune in next Wednesday, 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern time, live here on the Way to WOW show, People Making Money, and Marcia will be my guest. Today, my guest has been John Rubino of JID Investments. He's a retired naval aviator and now COO of JID Investments, and also one of my brothers. I'm proud to say, and so I'm gonna wrap it up here. And I think I forgot to do this last week, but this week I want to make sure that I remember to do this. So it's one of the great joys of my life was to take care of a woman by the name of Marie Faulkner, and she's very, very dear to my heart. She passed away in 2019, and somebody was asking me about where does this come from. So just real briefly, when I was visiting her in a nursing home shortly before she passed away, she asked me to come very close to her bed. And she got me to bend my ear down right above her mouth. And she said, "Kevin, I just want you to know that you're my beau, but not in any weird way." And that was Marie. She was the quintessential Southern belle, and just a wonderful, wonderful woman, raconteur, etc. So lest you forget, Marie, you are still my belle, darling. John, thanks so much. To all of you watching, thank you for watching, and hope to see you next week. All the best.